What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the Wednesday afternoon show. Didn't actually have to look at my phone to see what day it was. I was looking at my phone because something popped up. I am just going to send out some quick tweets here to let everybody know, or retweets to let everybody know that the show's on, that the content's up on the site. Been sitting here grinding away, getting content done, and some hours just kind of slipped by as I was working, so I didn't actually get links out today on Twitter, but everything's posted up on the site. Squatch Happens is in the chat saying, hump day, baby. Yeah, big happy hump day to everybody else. Larry C, no Mike Stanton in the Yankees lineup. That is ugly. I got to grab the confirmed lineups as we tee up the show here as well. But give me half a sec, guys, while I just fire up the old retweets here from my personal handle. Appreciate any retweets, likes, stuff like that you guys give me on Twitter. You know, just get the word out for when shows go live and all sorts of stuff like that. I know it's important. I'm just not great at it. So I'm going to do that, hitting the like, hitting the retweet, like, and retweet the old power index there. We'll get to content in just a second. I'll start looking at the camera in just a second. Oh, you know what? I also haven't put in placeholders. And the slate starts at 6:40 on FanDuel today. If you're not aware, 6:40 start time on FanDuel today. 7 games on FanDuel, 6 games on DK. I think it's a really interesting slate. For a short slate, there's a lot of good pitching. It's pretty light for opportunities for offense today. We've got no team, as of the last time I updated, with a total above 5. Handful of 4.7s, 4.8 type numbers. Good starting pitching. I think there's a couple really strong value pitching options. So we'll dig into this one in just a second. But let me get these placeholders loaded up. Fanatic says I would, but I have like 5 followers on Twitter, so I don't know how much help I'd be. I feel you, buddy. That's I've never been great at that. It's funny. My personal handle, the @digitalb21, @digitalb21. I don't know why I enunciated that weird. That one is kind of just, it was something I was using back when Twitter was more fun and it was about like telling jokes and like, stuff like that rather than all the craziness that goes on there now. So like a bunch of my followers were from, like, if anybody remembers that show At Midnight on Comedy Central that used to have like the hashtag comedy contests and stuff like that. Like I was doing those for a while back in like the 2014 kind of times, 2015. So that I have a bunch of people that follow me from that. Like only I think it's only like 2,000 followers on that handle are like DFS related at all. And then the rotoscouts one, I think we're up to like 150. So we're not exactly, I see people like Neil with like 8,000, and I think Emax got like 20,000, something like that. So I'm certainly not a major social media presence myself, and I'm never on there, so I don't exactly help myself. Like I might check stuff on there, but I rarely ever actually say anything. I actually have to get a little bit more involved in that. Yeah, Den, simpler times for sure. I actually won that At Midnight show once. I was on there. It was what was the category? The category was adorable illnesses, and my answer was Zoe Deschingles, because it was like Zoe Deschanel is adorable was the whole big buzz around pop culture at that time. Anywho, that was my stupid hashtag joke. All right, let's dive into this thing. I think I got stuff loaded up. Let me get I'll pop you over to this view so you guys can watch along and don't have to stare at my face. And Emacs been around since before Twitter, that's why. Yeah, Emacs did the original hashtag joke on a cave wall one day with a piece of chalk. New girl, exactly. All right, I like Zoe. Zoe has always been cute. Also looks a lot like, what's her face, Katy Perry, which was always strange. Not that I'm a big Katy Perry person. She's fine, I just don't really listen to or know any of her music or anything. All right, let's dive in. Let me grab these lineups as we start chatting here. Slide this guy over. It's just going to take a half a sec to get ready. I finished the article like 3 minutes before showtime. I just, like I said, I had time and it just kind of got away from me a little bit today. Just scrambling around trying to get stuff done. But we've got everything up on the site. I tweaked the stacks board for anybody who's looking. Somebody was asking me yesterday on Twitter. And by the way, guys, if you're not in the Discord, feel free to shoot me questions on Twitter. That also creates engagement on there for me as well. And I'm always happy to try and answer when I spot them. But Discord's probably the better place if you're in our free Discord. But somebody on Twitter was asking about how that stacks board worked. And it seemed like he was misinterpreting it because of where I had the pitchers listed on that. I had like the team and then the opposing pitcher and then the team ratings. And he was probably right. It made it look a little bit like it was telling you what the pitcher ratings were. And I certainly didn't want everybody to think like he pointed out, like it kind of looked like Anthony DeSclafani was the highest rated pitcher, which was not the case yesterday. Other people were asking about on that stacks board we had yesterday. We were talking about it in the Discord a little bit. a team like the Diamondbacks was rated as the highest home run model team. Their opposing pitcher was the lowest rated opposing pitcher, but they're only landing like mid board in terms of stacks, or actually kind of down board in terms of the overall stack projection. And that's because it was drawn on the average projection for the entire lineup. And there were 3 guys toward the bottom of the lineup that were dragging things down with mid single digit type projections for me. And then even the top of their lineup, there's like Corbin Carroll, and then there was Walker, who was getting a good home run rating. But overall, they were projecting, just in terms of what the talent in that lineup, like they're a good team that doesn't necessarily have like a Fernando Tatis, a Ronald Acuna, who puts that monster score up at the top to push the average up in the other direction. So it's just a bit of confluence of circumstances of that. I'm trying to figure out a good way to do that so that I can capture it in that situation without like taking a managed approach to it, where I'm saying, well, the model says this, but it should probably rank here. I don't want to get into any of that, because that's where we get too much bias creeping in around the edges. But I do want to find a good way to reflect how that is, whether it's a top 6, top 7 rating alongside the full lineup rating like I do with the home run model. I'm not quite sure. So we'll see how that comes out. But just be aware, when you're looking at that stacks board, put a little thought into it. You're always going to be looking at what the quality of the team is when you're looking at those value ratings, because it's a points per dollar. So you might be looking at a bad team in a good spot that is getting that are at cheap prices, or you might be looking at a good team that may be in a bad spot at good prices. So it works in kind of 2 directions, like I've talked about before. I think that's all the lineups we've got. So it looks like we've got a fair share of them. So let's jump in. Let me get back to the old chat here. Wendy's saying I'm getting a rotoscouts tattoo on my neck to help spread the word. I like it. Just maybe the name on like the side, and then like my little logo guy like on the back of your neck, like looking out that way for you. I like it. All right, let's get in here. First game on deck. This is the one that's on FanDuel, not on DraftKings, which is a shame for DraftKings, because I am getting very strong projections for the Braves. I'm getting pretty good projections for the Phillies. The Braves actually lead in terms of the average projection, despite the fact that Aaron Nola is on the mound. And that's another one of those cases where it's just, all right, we need to put a little thought into what that rating actually means for us. We know Nola is a good pitcher, but he's also been scuffling a little bit, and it's mostly driven by the Braves. Their talent is just so outrageous up and down that lineup in 9 spots that it just creates such a high average that they just compare that way to all these other teams. So does that mean the Braves are necessarily going to be the highest scoring team of the night? Not necessarily. It means they're providing the highest average projection. It's Aaron Nola, so we know that he's got the ability to punch holes in this lineup, but he's down for this season. 24.4% strikeouts over 94 2/3. Still pitches deep into games, regardless of whether he's given up runs. 94 2/3 in 15 starts is perfectly fine. 12% strikeout rate, 30.5% swing CSW, so 12% swinging, 30.5% CSW. So there is, obviously still talent here. He's walking 6.3%, but the 4.66 ERA, the 3.91 xFIP, those are concerning numbers for a guy 3.25 last year with a 2.77 xFIP. The whip is up, the walks are doubled. A 6.3% walk rate is still very good, but that's double what he did last year. He's allowing a bit more premium contact. Hard hits are up, barrels are up, home runs are way up at 3.94%. I think there's, I'm not saying Aaron Nola is shot by any means, but he's been underperforming, and it's just been a deadly good Braves lineup. So I come down on the Braves side of this one. I'll have some shares of Nola, 9,300, but he projects down. When we see the pitching board, there's a group of like 6 pitchers that are projected between like 31 and 33 fantasy points today for me in the FanDuel scoring. And then you got a guy like Nola at like 29. So he's in the group, he's on the list, but why do I want to attack the Braves when I've got a big pool of same type pitchers who I, regard pretty highly or think are at good value prices? I just don't need it with Nola tonight. It's a pitcher I love, have used a ton over time. I'll have some, but it's going to be small doses, and I think I'm going to have more of the Braves offense in this one. Nola's ownership on FanDuel is insane, given who he's facing. So that is just adds fuel to the fire for me to kind of want to undercut Nola shares here. He doesn't project as well for me as it looked like he was in other spots around the industry. So yeah, I'm gonna probably undercut the field on Nola, especially if he's popular on that slate. I still love the pitcher. Like I said, I think he's gonna get it figured out over time, and the numbers will probably normalize over time, and he'll be fine. And he could put up a solid start with a bunch of strikeouts, even if he gives up a home run or a couple of runs here. He'll probably give you 6, 7 innings if he's going right otherwise, and that balances out to an okay start. But just a lot of options on this semi-short slate. On the Phillies side, or excuse me, on the Braves side, AJ Smith-Shawver, it's another case of just like, I think he's a talented young kid. He's making his third start of his career, though. We're going up against a good Phillies lineup on the road. He doesn't project great for me. 8,000 on that FanDuel slate. I just don't think I need to tangle with it because there's other value pitchers that I like. To spoil the spot, Garrett Whitlock at his prices looks like a great option. So I'd just rather not spend this money on AJ Smith-Shawver here. He's okay. I believe there's talent here. 2.03 ERA in his 2 starts, a 4.78 xFIP, 21.2% strikeout rate. It's 2 starts, 3 appearances. He had the 3 strikeout appearances over 2 1/3 against the Diamondbacks in his first appearance. Second appearance, he struck out just 2 nationals, went like 5 1/3, I think. And then the third appearance, he had 6 strikeouts in 5 2/3, but I think he gave up a couple home runs, if I'm remembering that correctly. It's all in the article. It was like 26% when I saw it on Gun Show. Damn, that is high. He was highest owned, then Castillo, then Ohtani. Interesting. I've actually got Ohtani a tick above Nola, but below some of these other guys. Castillo near the top of the board. We'll get into it, but that's interesting ownership. That's good to know, and definitely impactful for the FanDuel slate. Today's show brought to you by the New York Knicks. 30-something years of basketball ineptitude and counting. We'll see what happens this year. I do not want Zion. For the record, I want to say that in public, on the record, I do not want Zion Williams to be a Knick. I know they're involved in trade rumors. I would be okay with Chris Paul coming to the team if they get involved in that rumor. End of his career. But if we're taking one shot with a guy, Chris Paul for sure. But I just don't believe in Zion. I believe there's plenty of talent there. I just think he's one of these guys who's going to force his way out of the NBA over a certain amount of time. Like, he's just got structural issues. He's just got, exactly, Squatch. He's got bad knees. He's too fat. He overeats. He doesn't seem to care that much. Like, I just don't want this kid here. I hope he goes on and has a phenomenal NBA career. I have nothing against him. I just don't want the Knicks to dive in and make that investment. It just seems like such a Knicks thing to do that would just not work out. It would probably work out for any other team, right? But not for the Knicks. We're on a good track. If we want to flip Randall for something, fine. You take or leave Randall. I think he's talented but flawed, and we know that. But I don't want Zion on this team by tomorrow night with the draft coming. Anyway, let's dive back into this. We're here to talk baseball, but I had to, since it popped into my head there, I had to throw that out there. So, all right, let's see. We're going up against Aaron Nola with the Braves. I'm going to take some shots. I think they're really affordable, if nothing else, on the FanDuel slate. We've got a massive amount of talent in here. There's Acuna at 46. There's Matty Olson at 4,000 dropping down the lineup to hit 5th, which I think is actually a pretty good spot for him in this lineup. He was probably miscast as a 2-hitter because he doesn't really hit for average. Gives you an okay on base percentage, but I prefer him here in 5th where we can drive in some of these runs. So I like that spot for Olsen. Those are the 2 most expensive players. Then we go to 35 for Ozzie Albies, which is a discount for a guy at second base, leading second base by 2 home runs with 17 on the board this year, a 236 ISO, creating runs 16% better than average. I do not get why people don't respect Ozzie Albies. I've been talking about it all year. He's never high priced. He'll probably be popular in that spot for, within Brave stacks, but I think he's perfectly viable here. I think it's a great spot to go to. Austin Riley, Marcell Ozuna, tons of right-handed power there. Riley's been scuffling along so far this season, but I mean, a tremendous home run hitter, a proven talent who only costs 3,000 today at third base. Ozuna also only costs 3,000, 13 homers on the season, 231 ISO, something more of a sellout for power type. But, an effective player is 21.3%. Actually, not even. 21.3% strikeouts is fine. 10.7% walks. He's pulled that together a little bit more than I had realized. 324 on base. Respectable enough. Talked about Olsen, his monumental power, 19.6% barrels, 54.9% hard hits. I love Matt Olson. He can hit 233 all he wants if he's putting up all that power. That's fine by me. Travis d'Arnaud in for Sean Murphy. Murphy's out with a sore hamstring, not on the IL, day-to-day sore hamstring. d'Arnaud is a step down from Murphy, but it's not like as big a step as it might be to, from any other premium catcher to their backup. d'Arnaud hit 19 home runs in 400 plate appearances last year, so he's a premium catcher himself. himself. He just happens to be the backup on this team. For 2,800, you can use him like a regular on FanDuel. Eddie Rosario, with all his hotness over the past couple of weeks, 13 home runs on the season now, up to 271, 311, 520, has just been scorching hot. And I went down the list for Rosario. I think a lot of people forgot how good this guy is over time. He's only 31 too, so it's not like, Joker, calm down. I know you love Eddie Rosario, but calm down. Go lie down, buddy. Joker's a big Rosario fan. So let's see. It was I broke it down in the column. I'll go to it real quick. Productive player in years past. It's been a minute since he was this productive. In 2017, 2018, and 2019, Rosario hit 27, 24, and 32 home runs. He hit 13 in the 60-game season in 2020. Then he played only 412 plate appearances in 2021, still had 14 homers and 11 steals. 2022, he missed like half of last year and wasn't great last year. So I think a lot of people just kind of forgot how good this guy is at the plate. And he's kind of come roaring back to life. 13 homers this year, a 520 slug, 249 ISO, 118 WRC plus. Lefty righty, I like the spot for Eddie Rosario late in the lineup. You guys know I love Orlando Arcia, especially on FanDuel where he's 3,000, 3-position eligible. The guy is hitting 341, 400, 489 from the 8 spot, over 200 plate appearances. His creative runs 43% better than average from the 8 spot this season. Nothing not to like about Orlando Arcia. And oh, by the way, Michael Harris has been a raging inferno over the past couple of days and has himself up to 249, 305, 399, 150 ISO, 6 homers, 7 stolen bases after that abysmal start after missing time with injury. Watch out for Michael Harris. Get him while he's cheap. He's 2,800. He's going to be 3,500 in a couple of weeks. Philly side of things, going up against Smith-Shawver, tons of upside here. Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot, 12.13 in the home run model, one of the better home run marks overall on a light-hitting day. Definitely a good spot for him. I do, like I said, believe in Smith-Shawver's talent, but if we're looking for a home run, I think Schwarber, leadoff Schwarbs is always on that list. 20 on the season, a 263 ISO. I don't care that he's hitting 191, 15.7% barrels, 47.7% hard hits. And oh, by the way, walks 16.7 of the time, so keeps himself involved even if he doesn't hit a long ball. Trey Turner, bad season, great player, 3,200, big discount for Trey Turner. I will happily take it. Like I've said on other shows, I will ride this ship to the bottom of the ocean because I just believe in Trey Turner's talent. We're talking about a guy who last season, 21-27 in terms of homers and steals, 101 runs, 100 RBIs, 298, 343, 466, 128 WRC plus. The year before was even better. 28 homers, 32 stolen bases, 107 runs, only 77 ribbies that year, but 42% better than average creating runs, 328, 375, 536. Trey Turner's an outrageous talent. Maybe something's going on. I'm not sure. I don't know what his personal life is like. Maybe he's hiding an injury. Whatever's happening, I'll just take that player at a discount. Buddy, please go lie down. Go on. Nick Castellanos having the opposite season for Turner. 11.1% barrels, 45.9% hard hits for Castellanos. 315, 360, 491, 129 WRC plus. Hitting ahead of Bryce Harper. Plenty of upside for Castellanos at what is still a cheap price, 3,300. He should just be more expensive. I'm not exactly sure why he's at that price. Harper is a star, 3,600. You still get first base eligibility on the FanDuel slate. Real Muto, Bryson Stott, Alec Bohm, plenty of talent across those 3 hitters. And then 2 big lefties at the bottom of the lineup in Cody Clemens and Brandon Marsh with a decent amount of pop down there for very cheap prices. I'm not sure how many times I'm going to put Cody Clemens at first base for 2,100 over, say, grab multiple outfielders from this team, put Harper at first base, or use Alec Bohm at first base and a better third baseman at third base in combinations with the Phillies. I'm not sure how many times I go to Clemens in that scenario, but I think I want to be doing it more than the public. And if I'm thinking about it in terms of I don't know how often they're going to be getting to it, I'm sure that the public is not going to be getting to it that much, which enhances the play, if that makes sense. And you can see it in the home run model. 6.21 as compared to 3s and 4s for many of these other guys in the bottom half of the lineup. That stands out to me for 2,100. So if he's, he is. This is a confirmed lineup. So I kind of like that spot as like a sneaky little play for some home run value. Brandon Marsh has had a good season so far. I know he's dipped a little bit after a hot start, but he's sitting 262, 347, 424, still creating runs 7% ahead of the average, 5 home runs, and still a really good hard hit rate, 51.5% hard hits. So I like that Phillies lineup basically top to bottom. I like the Braves. From ranking it out, probably Braves, Phillies, Nola, and then if you want some Smith-Shawver, you're not necessarily making a mistake, but I wouldn't do it. It's kind of how I see that one. Welcome aboard. DraftKings fans, we've got the Mariners and the Yanks up for you as your first game of the slate. Starts out at 7:05. Mismatched pitching in this one. Great spot for Luis Castillo. Dynamite pitcher. I like the option going up against my Yanks. I don't care that it's in Yankee Stadium. I think it's a perfectly fine opportunity to roster some Castillo. And if he's not the most owned player on the slate, I think it pushes his value here. 10-1 on DK is a good price. 10-6 on FanDuel is fine. 33.04 in my projections. Like I said, he's one of those top guys. There's just a collection of them between 31 and 33. But he's, I think, second overall on my board. 82 and a third over 14 starts, 29.6%. Strikeout rate, 2.73 on the ERA, 3.42 on the xFIP. A little bit of premium contact. This could hurt him a little in Yankee Stadium. The 90.2 miles an hour exit velo, 45.9% hard hits, 9.7% barrels. But like I think it was Larry pointed out at the top of the show, no Stanton in the Yankees lineup tonight. Gets ugly fast in New York today. Jake Bauers, Gleyber Torres, Willie Calhoun hitting third. Anthony Rizzo, Josh Donaldson, Harrison Bader, Billy McKinney, Kyle Higashioka, Anthony Volpe. There's a massive amount of potential in this spot for Castillo. Mash the Castillo button. I would drop the Yankees in my stack ratings. I would drop the Yankees in my desire to get to them with this version of the lineup. Could they ding Castillo? Sure. Anything could happen. It's baseball. It's reality. A meteor could strike the stadium today. Anything could happen. This version of the Yankees getting to Luis Castillo seems pretty unlikely to me. Jake Bauers in the leadoff role is a weird leadoff hitter. He's walking at a decent clip, but he strikes out near 30% of the time. He should probably hit fifth, maybe move Bader to the leadoff spot. He doesn't get on base very much so far this season, but at least you get that speedy guy who puts the ball in play a decent amount, only 13.3% strikeouts for Bader. Needs to walk a little bit more, but I think those two should flip in this lineup, but that's neither here nor there. Gleyber Torres and Willie Calhoun. Gleyber's fine, but Willie Calhoun is miscast as a three-hitter or as a major league player at this point. 2,400, 2,300 is a perfectly fine price. It's a weird universe when Willie Calhoun is only 200 less than Anthony Rizzo. So if you're looking for value, if you're looking for a one-off, maybe you go to Anthony Rizzo, 4,100, 2,500, at least gets the lefty-righty of the scenario. Drove one off the wall last night, thought it was a home run, started his home run trot, and then realized he had to hustle. But that's fine, that happens. Wish he would just run, but whatever. So Rizzo's cheap. Donaldson sells out for power. He's cheap at third. Bader is capable when he's in the lineup. There's a little bit of pop, some good speed there. But I greatly prefer the Seattle side of this one in all aspects. Johnny Brito is not a major league talent. He's a Willie Calhoun. He's just not that good. He had one good start. It was the first start we ever saw him, April 2nd. He struck out 6, pitched 5 and change clean innings. And since then, he's given up runs. He hasn't struck out many. He's been bad. He got sent back down. He's a mediocre, limited pitcher. He's got a limited arsenal. He's got a power sinker. It's not even a plus sinker. It's a power sinker. He's got good horizontal movement on 3 pitches. He's got a power sinker, but it just doesn't work very well. Once the book caught up with him, he immediately became this hittable pitcher, and I think that's just who we're dealing with. 16.9% strikeouts, walks too many at 10.1%, 5.58 xFIP, ERA, 5.32 xFIP in his 9 starts, 40 and a third innings. Plenty of power available, 11.7% barrels, 3.93% home runs. This is a pitcher, I know there are a ton of strikeouts in the Mariners lineup, but I think this plays more up to the Mariners' talent for hitting home runs than it does into a good spot for Johnny Brito here. He could find value. It's not completely off the table. He had one game where he struck out 5 after that first start and one game where he struck out 6. Neither one of them was a good start. In every other start, or including those starts rather, after his first start and 1 relief appearance. So 9 appearances, he averaged a 2.66 strikeout total in those 9 appearances when I checked his game log. So it's not a good pitcher. It's a bad spot. You're dealing with a talented but flawed, let's say, Mariners lineup. It's an interesting configuration. They moved Jose Caballero into the leadoff spot, which I was calling for yesterday. So we'll see how this guy does. He's been hitting down lineup in the 9th spot, kind of like Crawford was all year, and he's put up a good WRC plus in 138 plate appearances, a 384 on base percentage. So Caballero's been productive bottom of the lineup, but they kind of destroyed JP Crawford's productive season by moving him to the leadoff role. We'll see what happens, but they need a catalyst up top. I like that spot for this kid, 2,400 on both sites, multi-position on FanDuel. He bolts in. He needs his teammates to pick him up a little bit. If he gets on, he might swipe a bag, 10 stolen bases on the year. He's even got 2 home runs. But I don't think we're talking about a kid we're looking for home runs. We're looking for correlated scoring with him. Get him on base ahead of Julio Rodriguez, Teoscar Hernandez, Jared Kelenic, Eugenio Suarez. Obviously, Ty France is in that mix as well, even though he's not one of the major power producers. Can still create runs, 275, 345, 418. Doesn't strike out much. So he defies this team theme. 16.4% strikeouts is very, very good. Ty France is good at putting the ball in play. He just hasn't hit for quite as much pop as he did last year. He had 20 home runs last year. The average is actually right in line. The on base is right in line. So he's a productive player. It's just a little bit less power than he hit for last year. But I like France. He'll be in my plans if I'm going to Mariners stacks, 3,400, 2,700. Nice discount on him. It's an effective player for that price. Teoscar, Kelenic, Eugenio, Cal Raleigh all strike out aggressively. 32.1, 32.6, 28.7, 26.3. But they all hit the ball extremely hard. Mid 40s hard hit rates for all those guys. Double-digit barrel rates for all those guys. So there's plenty of power there. One of these guys is going to be able to get to Johnny Brito. One of these guys is going to exploit his just flat pitches that ride out over the zone. There's horizontal movement on some of them. He's got good horizontal movement, like I said, on his four-seamer that he mixes in to work off of the sinker. But it tends to come in as a flat pitch. His slider is meh. His changeup rather, not his slider. It's got, again, good horizontal movement, but he makes mistakes with it, and they just sit there, and guys can pound it. So I just don't like this pitcher. I'm going to throw Mariners bats at him. I'm getting a good home run rating on Mike Ford down the bottom of the lineup, kind of like I was yesterday for 2,200, 2,100. Lefty in Yankee Stadium is what we're looking for, guys. 4 home runs on the season. I know he's not a good player, but a 364 ISO in his 35 plate appearances, 4 home runs in 35 plate appearances. It's an oddball kind of a play, but that's where you can bend a slate for 2,200, 2,100. Not a good player. Quad A type talent, but he's in the lineup. He's hitting 8th. There's not going to be any kind of popularity on that guy. He's a first baseman, which kind of sucks. It's not a great replacement for other first basemen, but in a few shares, it's worth doing. Colton Wong, bad season, good player in his past. Double-digit home runs and steals each of the last 2 years, 15-17 and 14-12 the last 2 years, but has just been bad this season. 30 WRC plus and 137 plate appearances. No home runs, no stolen bases. Not the Colton Wong of the past. So strong interest in Castillo, strong interest in the Mariners, very, very tepid interest in the Yankees, zero interest in Johnny Brito. If you wanted to use him as a DK SP2 in a few shares, it's fine, but I don't expect much. You're basically attacking the Mariners strikeout rate at what I would hope would be low ownership there. Athletics and the Guardians. I'm kind of keeping an eye on the time. We're at 4:30. We don't have that many games to talk about, and I'm kind of trying to keep a good pace today, just because of that 6:40 start on FanDuel. I want to have a little bit of time to run my lineups. I don't want to push up to 6 o'clock today. So we'll see if we can get to it. Greg Biancone says, "Dear God, Mike Ford is in the Seattle lineup." Yeah, he has been. Has been for 35 plate appearances anyway now. So yeah, I'm going to take my Mike Ford shots. Small doses, small doses. But if I've got 20 Mariners stacks, he'll be in 5 of them. I think that's reasonable. Gun in the chat. What's going on, Gun? You get that wrestling match scheduled yet? I saw a tweet yesterday. You're bigger than that other dude. Need to prove who's dominant. What's going on down there? Is that guy ducking you or what? Trey's in the chat. What's up, Trey? Po DJ and Stoner. Gun in my left ear, Terry in my right ear, Mary Jane in my lungs. I'm with you, buddy. Love it. Squatch, Terry's do pronounces the Latin name. Yeah, his name's perfect. It started as a bit, and then like I've talked about this before. My mom's Cuban. She was born in Havana. My grandmother is a Cuban woman. I speak some Spanish. I'm not great at it, but it became this thing where like it was a bit, people enjoyed it. I was doing it on Stochastic, and I continue it here because I got to the point where some people are silly and object to it, and it's like, well, if you think about it, like why would you object to that? Because it is the correct way to say these players' names, and I don't claim to get them all right. I don't claim to have a good pronunciation or anything. But like if there was somebody in like Argentina. Or Argentina, if you want to say it that way. See, I don't always do it, and I don't always hit it right. And in my typical life, I'm not always doing it. But when I'm saying these guys' names in public, like, it is the correct way. Like, if there was an Argentine broadcaster who was saying my name is Terry McBreed, I'd have something to say about it. It's technically reading the name, sure, but you're saying it wrong. So I try, for better or for worse, I try. Anyway, let's move on. So this one, I think we've got a really interesting pitching matchup here. Gavin Williams is way too cheap on the DraftKings slate. That is a major, major piece of value on DraftKings. This kid is a premium prospect in baseball. One of the top pitching prospects in all of baseball, going up against one of the worst lineups in baseball for 5,700. You can definitely sign me up for some shares on the DraftKings slate. And I think I'm interested at the FanDuel price as well. That is a good spot. Looking at Williams throughout the minors this year, 14 and a third in AA over 3 starts to start the year. 3.0 xFIP, a .63 ERA, and a 37.7% strikeout rate. Bumped him up to AAA, 9 starts, 46 innings. More advanced hitting, struck out 33.3%, did walk 11.5%, but also had the top swinging strike rate in AAA over that sample. While he was pitching in AAA, top swinging strike rate, it was 15% plus. So it was somebody else's tweet. Excellent stuff plus metrics across his arsenal. 97 mile an hour four-seamer on average, rides his way up into the triple digits. An elite slider, developing secondary, tertiary and fourth pitch in a curveball and a changeup. Just very, very talented. Has strikeout upside, has a lot of appeal at the DraftKings price, and projects right in that top group of pitchers. Some of that is fed by this terrible Oakland lineup, but we've been attacking them all season, and I see no reason to not attack him on this slate. So I'm going to be going to Gavin Williams here for better or worse on the FanDuel slate at 83. They could have done us a favor and priced him a little bit cheaper, but that's an aggressively good price on this particular slate for a guy who projects as one of the better pitching options. On the other side of it, I don't think Paul Blackburn's completely inept against this Guardians lineup. 25.3% strikeouts in 20 2/3 over 4 starts this year. That's up over who he actually is. He's more this guy. 21 starts, 111 innings last year, 19.1% strikeouts. I feel like he's probably that guy, a little bit better in the swinging strikes this year, a little bit better in the CSW this year. He might be this guy, which would be a nice uptick, but I'm not totally sure. But what I do know for sure is that he's going up against the Guardians lineup that's been terrible at hitting for power this year, terrible at creating runs, terrible at getting on base. They don't strike out much, but we're not really chasing strikeouts if we roster Paul Blackburn at 82.68. His pricing's just weird. I think this is a weird price on DraftKings. He should be this price on DraftKings. He should be 68 on DraftKings, 82 on FanDuel. I don't know why he's reversed. I think there's maybe a couple shares of value there on the FanDuel slate. I don't love it because I don't know that he's going to get me a quality start, and I don't think he's going to find many strikeouts against the Guardians. It's the one thing they do well. But I'm not going to be led down the path to Guardians shares again today. I ducked it yesterday for the most part. We talked about it on the show. Hopefully everybody got away from it. They ended up highest implied team total. And I don't like doing, one individual result, but I think it plays to just who they've been all season long. We talked about how that run total yesterday in the 5s looked wrong, and it did. It came out. They scored 2 runs in the 7th inning and then needed the 10th inning to score a 3rd. It's not a good team. They've just been bad. So I'm not going to go to many Guardian shares. If they're unpopular, I might grab a few additional ones, but I expect a little bit of popularity. They're even on a light slate. They're one of the more highly totaled teams. 4.89 run total is the highest on the board. So I still disagree with that. It's lower than it was yesterday, but I don't think it's that great a spot. I think Blackburn is a talented enough guy. Last year in that larger sample, a 4.28 ERA, a 3.89 xFIP, 6.4% walks. No real struggles with power. 40.5% hard hits is a little high, but 88.2 on the exit velo, 7% barrels, 3.21% home runs. All that's perfectly fine. I have no real issues with thinking that Blackburn is a league average pitcher. So why am I going to attack a league average pitcher with a terrible team? I don't really see it. They're at okay prices. There's talent here. I believe there are talented guys on this team. Ahmed Rosario, I believe, is talented. Andres Jimenez, I believe, is talented. They haven't done it at all this year. They did it a little bit last year. I was expecting steps forward this year, not massive steps back from those guys this year. Jose Ramirez is a very talented guy. He's kind of caught on a little bit over the last week and change. He's up to 11 home runs, 217 ISO, 125 WRC plus, 504 slugging. Pulled himself together a little bit. I love Jose Ramirez because he's only striking out 8.5% of the time, puts the ball in play like crazy. And when you hit the ball like he does over time, that'll come around with that much contact. Like his numbers will be fine by the end of the season. They're already trending back to where he should be. But he was underperforming about 2-3 weeks ago. So, we're sold on Jose Ramirez, but without a lot of support around him in this cast. Josh Naylor's been fine for most of the season. 283, 328, 442, a 107 WRC plus. But those are the only two guys above average in this lineup for run creation this year. The bottom third of the lineup, Will Brennan, Miles Straw, Bo Naylor. Bo, I think, has power upside as a cheap catcher. He's Josh's brother. Probably projects to like the mid-teens in terms of home runs, but it's not a great option. He's fine for 2,500 where you need catchers at the bottom of the lineup. Maybe hits you a home run here. He's got a better home run rating than at least Will Brennan and Miles Straw do. He would be better higher up in the lineup for home run power. Josh Bell's been bad. Kwan's been bad. Not getting on base like he used to. Not scoring runs. Not stealing bases because he's not getting on base. Not hitting for average. It's a flawed team. So limited exposure for me to the Guardians. In an odd twist, I actually might have more interest in the Athletics. Going up against Gavin Williams, for all his talent, for all his specialness, what I think is going to be a very good pitcher, and multiple plus pitches, it's still his major league debut. It's still a team that, for all their flaws, they're at least cheap. Maybe it buys me a few additional bats on a stack that I actually want to get to. I was all prepared to talk about Brent Rooker and his double-digit mark in the home run model, and he's not in the lineup. Oh well. The one day I say something nice about Brent Rooker in the article and he's not in the goddamn lineup. Son of a bitch. It's kind of flawed. I'm actually going to pull that back a little bit now that I notice there's no Rooker, which is so weird given how much I've hated Rooker all season. If I'm going to the A's, which I still will, it'll be primarily those top like 5 hitters and maybe a share of Shea Langoliers, but on FanDuel I don't even really need to do that. Ruiz, tons of stolen base upside, 37 stolen bases, leads the league. He's got Ronald Acuna chasing him now. Ronnie's over 30 at this point, which is just insane given how good he is. Ronald Acuna is second in the league for batting average, like 40 points behind Luis Arias, and then second in the league in stolen bases, 15 home runs. Ronnie Acuna is great. Esteury Ruiz, not that player, 93 WRC plus. Needs to get on base a little bit more to help the team create runs and exploit his speed. Only walks 4% of the time. Does put the ball in play at a good clip. Ryan Noda, on-base percentages come down. It was like 415 about 2 weeks ago. Now 389. Probably showing more of the flawed actual player that he is. He was pushing a ton of walks. 18.3% walk rate is outrageous, but 32.8% strikeout rate. He does have 7 home runs, a solid ISO, 135 WRC plus. There's a little bit of potential there. Seth Brown is the actual best hitter on this team. 25 homers, 11 stolen bases last year. Only cost you 2,400, 2,500 from site to site. First and outfield eligible on FanDuel. He's fine. Ramon Laureano, multiple seasons of mid-teens, double-digit home run and stolen base totals. JJ Bleday, another lefty in the outfield. Moderate output with 4 home runs, 3 steals. We're looking at the A's. It's going to get ugly here. Jace Peterson, Shea Langoliers, Tony Kemp, Tyler Wade, just mix and match parts through the bottom of the lineup. I guess if you were stacking a ton of Athletics, it would be nice to have 2 dead minimum price guys on the FanDuel slate with multi-position eligibility to move around. Tyler Wade's got a moderate amount of talent. Never really clicked at the major league level, but like a hit tool minor type speed guy with 3 positions at the dead minimum. He could be effective, but it's not a good spot. He's going up against what should be a premium pitcher. So I don't love the A's, but I'll have a smattering of them, and I don't even like them more than the Guardians anymore. With no Rooker here, they're here to hit for power. My favorite player in the league, Brent Rooker. Just don't like this spot for either one of these offenses. So it's a strong share of Gavin Williams for me. Maybe some oddball shots with $6,800 Paul Blackburn. I'm talking about like 5, maybe 8 lineups total across 150 if I go to it at all with Blackburn. I think he's kind of just, he doesn't necessarily need to be in a player pool at 8,200 on DK. He should be at that $6,800 price. Then he'd have appeal on DK. All right. This is an interesting spot for pitching. Garrett Whitlock at 7,000, against this Twins team that has a confirmed lineup with a 29.3% strikeout rate. I think there's a lot of value there. I like him as an SP2 on DK. I like him a lot at 6,600 on FanDuel. Pitched into the 7th in both of his last 2 starts. So he's kind of stretched out now. We're in start number 8 for the season after he started the season injured. Finding his form, finding some more strikeouts over those last couple of starts. He's sitting 20.9% for the strikeout rate over 7 starts in 39 innings. But if we look back in time, 26.4% last year, 27.2% in a relief role 2 years ago. And if we look at the swinging strikes, the CSW, 12.8%, 30.6%, those are around this, and they're almost identical to this. So I think he's this guy, not this guy. I think he's the mid-20 strikeout guy, not the low 20 strikeout guy. The walk rate is outstanding every year. 5.7, 4.8, 4.4. The whip, the xFIP, the ERA are fine so far this year, have been even better over the course of time. I think Whitlock's a talented pitcher when he's healthy. So far this season has been perfectly effective in limiting power, 8.5% barrels. It's a little higher than you'd want, 3.8 home run rate, a little higher than you want, but he's kind of working out the kinks. Overall effective with only 36.8% hard hits, though. So there's upside here for Garrett Whitlock, I think, for days. Red Sox pitcher Lowe, Semien, Berger, Seager, Jimenez, Roberts, Taveras, Tatis Jr. on FanDuel. Pray for my DFS baseball soul. It's a hell of a lineup. You can buy a lot of hitting with a $6,600 pitcher who has a shot at a quality start, has a shot at a win, has a shot at a solid handful of strikeouts on that FanDuel slate. Who's talking in my Discord? Mastermind. Oh, all right. It looks like a weather update from Mastermind via Roth at RG. Says, I have to up the risk in Philly. It's all fairly light stuff, but it does look like they would basically have to play all game in rain. They might just decide to PPD, which is a problem. Flip side of that is if they do play, I don't think it ever gets heavy enough to force them to stop. It's just playing all game in the rain. All right, dicey situation. One to monitor there for the FanDuel slate in Philadelphia. That could be critical because of all the Brave shares I want to get to, the fair amount of Aaron Nola that I want to get to, the fair amount of the Phillies bats that I want to get to. So that's going to be one to watch. We're not going to have it before the end of this show unless they PPD it. So keep an eye on the weather in Philly. Thanks for the update there, Mastermind. That was important in the Discord. Jump into the free Discord, gang. If you're not in the Discord, it is linked in the description of this. It's always linked from the top of rotoscouts.com, which is where all my content is. And the Discord's entirely free, just like all the content on the site. Hit the like button and the subscribe and all of those good things to do me some favors. We cracked 200 views on the show yesterday. Had a good handful of likes. I love it. We're 100 and however many subscribers. Just building a little bit of momentum. Love to see it. Really, really appreciate it. More than loving to see it, I just appreciate it. You guys are coming out and helping me out. So the Twins on the other side of the Whitlock scenario here, I think there's definite upside for rostering some shares of Twins. It's not like Whitlock's invulnerable. He's given up that 3.80% home run rate. He's definitely facing a team with tons of power in it. Kirilloff, Correa, Buxton, Kepler, Gallo, all big-time power hitters, guys with good bats. They come at cheap prices. There's just so many strikeouts. It's just such a team that you can poke holes in with a good strikeout pitcher that it's hard for them to sequence. It's hard for them to create rallies, have those big, innings where the entire lineup turns over. They bat around, score 6 runs in an inning, hit 2 home runs in an inning with multiple guys on base. Like, this just isn't that team. You get more upside for solo homers on this team, a couple of zeros. It's a tough team to stack on a lot of nights, but I will have some. Edward Julian up top as a rookie, 4 early home runs, but still, a decent WRC plus number. Has a little bit of pop, has a little bit of speed. Still strikes out though, 33.9%. He can walk, he can get on base via the walk, but Whitlock doesn't really walk anybody. Same thing with Kirilloff. Aggressive strikeout rate, walks, but Whitlock doesn't really walk anybody. 4 home runs on the season for Kirilloff, a better hitter overall right now. We'll see how they develop out, both young guys. Kirilloff, lefty pop. I like the Kirilloff play better than the Edward William play if I'm taking one guy. Carlos Correa, all his struggles, he's just cheap. We're just taking the discount when we go to Correa. We're not worried about the struggles. He'll come around eventually. Maybe the triple slash doesn't look anything like previous years, but he still hits for a decent amount of power. 12.5% barrels, 9 home runs, and 190 ISO. So we're fine with grabbing shares of Carlos Correa for cheap in twin stacks. Buxton, 5,600, 3,000, discounted for Byron Buxton's talents. 11 homers on the season at 219 ISO. 209, 313, 428. We want more. We might not get it. 30.5% strikeouts. I don't know what Buxton finishes the season at in terms of his triple slash, but I believe the power is going to be there. I think we're going to crack 25, assuming he stays healthy, which you always have to say. I think we'll crack the 25 home run total and 200 plus ISO for the season, if nothing else. Kepler, 3,000, 2,400, good lefty power bat late in the lineup. Joey Gallo, 3,800, 2,300, better lefty power bat in the lineup. More flawed lefty power bat for sure, but definitely more power upside in just the raw form. You can see that in the contact profile. 19.1% barrels, 58.4% hard hits for Gallo, despite his obvious flaws in the 37.6% strikeout rate. Everybody knows I love Joey Gallo. I accept these power hitters with their flaws, especially when they walk at good rates and get on base. Gallo, 188 in the front of the triple slash there and only a 312 on base, despite the 14.3% walks. Needs to hit a little bit more for average. Like I said, just crack the Mendoza line, Joey, and you're a better player, which would have been the case in New York. I still miss him. Anyway, Mike Lake gives you the odd duck home runs, 10 on the season. Every time we talk about it, it seems like he goes out and gets one. So let's give him one tonight. Let's get number 11, Mikey Taylor, bottom of the lineup, 2,300. If I'm building 20 twin stacks, which I'm probably not tonight, he's in 4 or 5 of them. Vasquez hit 1 home run this season. Catcher hit a bunch of home runs years ago, but hasn't really been that guy in a long, long time. Red Sox on the other side of this one, going up against Sonny Gray. Sonny's been dynamite. There's major talent in Sonny Gray's right arm, and he's cheap. 9,700, 9,900. Fangraphs had a good piece on him, adding a cutter that's just improved his arsenal, and he's just been dynamite all season. 24.8% strikeouts, 2.37 ERA, 3.69 xFIP. Plenty of upside for Sonny. And oh, by the way, 14 starts, 76 innings, 320, I think, some odd hitters faced. He's allowed 1 home run this year. Is he going to sustain that for the entire season and give up like 2 or 3 the entire year? Probably not. He'll probably give up like 10 when it's all said and done. Maybe 2 or 3 of them come in this matchup, but he's been outstanding this season, and the price is low for a talented guy. We've seen the Red Sox give up big games. They have a couple guys who are really difficult to strike out, but there are other guys who are fairly easy to strike out in this lineup. So I think overall, Sonny's getting a great spot here. He projects right up with the top-end pitchers on the board. I think there is Porzingis to the Celtics. Holy shit. Gundacker with the Woj bomb in the chat, the gun bomb. Damn, that's an interesting one. For what? Do you think they're moving on from one of the two big pieces? I mean, Tatum's staying, so it would be Jalen that would move. That would be a strange pivot for them to make. That's a nice acquisition if they're just adding Porzingis to the mix. Interesting. I wonder if that heralds another move to come. Interesting. All right, let's dive back in. So, Red Sox lineup does have Tristan Casas in it. I was wondering if he was going to play. He wasn't in the Schmabs projected lineup, but I was speculating he would play. Makes total sense that he would. 2,725. A little bit of pop, but definitely some strikeouts there. Good walk rate for Casas. We talked about him showing some signs. The barrel rate is good. The hard hits are good. The walk rate is very good. The strikeouts are fine, perfectly acceptable at 25.8, especially if he's walking 15%. The home runs are coming around. The power's coming around. So I think there's going to be a big second half for Tristan Casas, which means hopefully Bobby Dahlbeck will get himself traded and actually get into the majors so that I can use him on my dynasty team. Can't mention Tristan Casas without talking about Bobby Dahlbeck. Top of the lineup, Jarren Duran. That's a good spot for Jarren Duran. Lefty leading off. Verdugo, Turner, Devers, Yoshida. That's where you want to live if you're building Red Sox stacks. It's 1 through 6. You can mix and match Christian Arroyo, Reese McGuire, and Enrique Hernandez to your heart's content. I don't love any one of those hitters. Hernandez has had good years in the past as like a mix and match option, multi-position, cheap, some talent. He's got 6 homers on the year, but he's been bad this season. He's playing good defense still for them and is a very flexible part. He's a better major leaguer now than he is a DFS piece, though. I think that's this one up and down. So enthusiastic about Whitlock value. Enthusiastic about Sonny Gray as a premium pitching option. I will have minor shares of Red Sox and probably more shares of Twins. But probably moderate doses of both lineups. Moderate to low, I should say. Do we have the Rangers lineup yet? Doesn't look like, but let me reload the page. See what Schmabs is up to. Nope, no Rangers lineup yet. Getting into this one, I think we can forego the pitching for the most part in this one. Kopech is a talented guy. 9,495 though on this slate. Do I want to pay those prices for a pretty flawed starting pitcher when I've got so many good options? I don't know that I do. And I don't know that I wanted to do it against the probably, highest scoring best lineup in baseball or second best. It's just not the spot. If he was going up against like the A's or the Tigers or somebody, sure, fire away. Against the Rangers? Why? Why do I want to do it? Why would I want to do that to myself? It's just the wrong price. If he was like 8,000 on the FanDuel slate, like, 8's high sevens on the DK slate. We'd have a little bit more meat on the bone. I just don't see it tonight. 3.92 ERA, 4.69 xFIP, giving up too much premium contact with a 14.7% barrel rate, 42.1% hard hits, 90.2 on the exit velo, 4.5% home runs. Strikes out a good handful at 26.7%. Like I said, talented guy, but 11.7% walks against this Rangers lineup? No, thank you. Just not a good spot. At the same time, Martin Perez on the other side. The way I wrote it in the article was he's not pitching like the old version of Martin Perez. He's pitching like the old version of Martin Perez. He just seems like he's washed at this point. 15.9% strikeouts, 4.54 ERA, 4.85 xFIP, a 1.50 whip, inducing an 8.4% swinging strike rate. Too much premium, well, not even really premium contact. 6.2% barrels is fine. This is okay. But giving up some home runs despite that not being like, off trajectory. So I just think it's a kind of a mediocre spot on both sides. Could you get a value-based SP2 play from Perez on the DK slate at 59? Absolutely. Absolutely. If he gives you 6 innings, 6 innings, he could give you value here. I just don't see it, though. It's not really shining through in my model. He's okay in the projection. The 22.6 in FanDuel scoring it puts him on the board at that price. I just don't trust it. I think I'd rather get involved with the White Sox here, and I think we've got similar-ish type of options over there. So not really a spot for me. I wouldn't tell anybody they were completely making a mistake, though, if they went to Perez at a few shares. 10 shares of $5,900 Perez is more than enough. Chuck says Robert will break him by himself. I totally agree. I love Lou Bob. We talked about Lou Bob. My buddy Mike Brown in that Dynasty League yesterday sent me a text saying, you know who would look good on my team? Lou Bob. And I was like, you mean the guy I just acquired that I absolutely love, who's in the middle of a monster breakout season as a 25, about to be 26-year-old, who also happens to be a Cuban? Come on. I'm not trading that guy. Plus, Mikey just doesn't have the value to get me there. If he gave me the right offer, I might, but I've got him under contract for the next 2 years with the option to be able to extend him out for another 5. I have a feeling he's going to be a big part of my team for the next few years here. I love the breakout. Like I said, 25, about to be 26 years old, 18 home runs this season, a 273 ISO, carrying the team. They've been bad, but he's carried them as far as they've gone so far this year. So love getting Lou Bob in my lineups. Eloy Jimenez, same story, 13.2% barrels, 50.4% hard hits. I don't even want to mention the unmentionable about Eloy Jimenez because I don't want to jinx him. I just want him in the lineups. 9 homers on the season in 180 plate appearances. That's perfectly fine, and he's cheap. 4,200, 3,000. That's a good value play. Benny up at the top of the lineup against the same-handed pitcher. It's not the greatest spot in the line in the world, but 2,000 or 2,800 across sites. A very capable hit tool type guy, on base percentage guy who correlates. Hasn't done it in great fashion this year. 276, 344, 362, only a .086 ISO. We don't expect him to hit for power, but we need better than a 95 WRC plus. We need 344 is a good on base percentage, but we could deal with higher. We could certainly deal with a higher batting average. Still puts the ball in play a lot, gets on base. Andrew Vaughn, similar story. Puts the ball in play, gets himself on base at a decent clip for a guy who does also have a little bit of power. 10 home runs on the season for Vaughn, a 109 WRC plus. So I think we can go to some White Sox there at the top end. I like their 1 through 4 at least. I like Jake Berger in the 6th spot. I like Clint Frazier in the 7th spot. Yasmani Grandal I really liked Yasmani Grandal a few years ago when he was walking at like a 20% clip, scoring a ton of runs for this team and just a catalyst for the offense. Kind of came down. He was 12% walks last year. This year only 6.8%. Not really providing value. 5 home runs, needs to hit for more power if he's not drawing those walks and getting on base. Only a 318 on base percentage, 97 WRC plus. So Grandal's come down a bit in my esteem. If you're going to White Sox though, you can definitely use him as a catcher on DK at 34. 24 is at least a good value price. Maybe you stick him into a few stacks as if he was a first baseman. Berger, tons of power, 16 home runs on the season. Good little power rating in my home run model at 10.17 today. Not a player I believe in over the long term by any means, but has been productive. The price is right. There's a little bit of pop there. Frazier, $2,100 post-hype player. I got him to work in my model at least. So we're getting a 2.05%, 2.05 in the home run model. I think he's got a little bit more pop than that. It's probably just because there was a fairly low projection still on the backbone projections, which come courtesy of Steamer. So maybe I give that a little bit of a tweak just to push his home run total a little bit for future use. I still can't for the life of me figure out why he isn't in the season-long stats on Fangraphs though. I actually went and looked for him the other day, and he's literally not in there. I even tried to spell it differently. I tried to use like a capital I where the L is. I tried to add a junior. I don't know why he's not in there. If anybody knows, let me know. But there should be stats here because he's made a few plate appearances, but there aren't. Elvis Andrews, everybody knows I hate. Zach Remillard, whatever, mix and match him. Kopech, you're throwing bats at him. Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Josh Young, Adolis Garcia, Nathaniel Lowe, Jonah Heim, Mitch Garver, Ezekiel Duran, Leody Taveras. Take any one of those guys, take any 5 of those guys, take any 4, any 3, any combination of those hitters that you want in this matchup. They're just too talented from top to bottom. He's Jackson Frazier? Is that his real name? I did not know that. So I've got to create all right, hang on. Yeah, there's no reason to do this live on the air. I was gonna drop his name into my ridiculously long list of naming conventions. Jackson Frazier. Let me write that down though. Thanks, Gunn and Hershey. I didn't know that. All right, noted. We'll get Clint/Jackson's stats in here. Anyway, so there's pretty good value pricing here. All these prices are pretty fair on the FanDuel slate. All these prices are pretty fair on the DK slate for such a talented team. Every single player in the projected lineup well above average by WRC plus, a 133 average. So the average hitter on this team is 33% better than league average for run creation this year. There's a 65 plate appearance total in there with Mitch Garver, but we believe in Mitch Garver. Everybody else has a healthy amount of plate appearances. It's not, full samples, but it's growing samples, and there's a lot of guys with full career samples that we really trust here. Josh Young is having an outstanding season. 4,600, 3,300, both those prices are too cheap. Honestly, it's a guy I didn't believe in at the beginning of the year, and I've totally come around. 15 homers on the year, 221 ISO, 130 WRC plus, slashing 279, 333, 500. Just he's been absolutely outrageous, especially because he's taken his strikeout rate from 38.2% in a small sample last year to 25.3% this year. This is what I was worried about. This is what I now believe in. That's as simple as it gets. If he's not striking out, he's going to be pounding the ball. Adolis Garcia, Nathaniel Lowe, there's tons and tons of value there. I like Lowe's hit tool. I like his power upside in moderate doses as like a mid-range power hitter type guy that's underrated, that's always affordable, that's always under-owned. Jonah Heim and Mitch Garver, good catcher tandem, power on both of those bats. 9 homers and 259 plate appearances for Heim, 3 and 65 plate appearances for Garver. Proven players. Ezekiel Duran having a great breakout season, 3,100, 3,000, still too cheap. Dual position eligibility on DK at 31, 3 position eligibility at 3,000 on the FanDuel slate. Just bananas. It's his middle name. Right, because that makes sense. Thanks, Fangraphs. It's like when they decided between seasons that year to just add all the accents in after they hadn't been doing it and screwed up everything I was doing, or when they just drop a random column with no data into a model that I just have for years been just transporting into my model. I love them, but sometimes there's frustrating decisions like that that get made. But it's not their fault. They don't know who's using what and why, and they need to get data in there. So I get it, but every now and again I get a little annoyed at my pals over at Fangraphs for stuff like that. But give them money. I said it on yesterday's show. Give them money. If you use Fangraphs, subscribe. If you like the stuff that we do, toss them a little something because they operate a great site over there. And give our pal Gunn some subscriptions, by the way. I don't know if his offer's still valid. I don't know if it's still going. That killer offer where he was basically giving away his NFL and NBA content over at his site. But if it is, take advantage. If it's not, buy his baseball content and then buy his NBA and NFL content separately. Killer content. Love doing shows with the guy. Looking forward to doing another one. Let's move on. So we talked about the Rangers. You know that up and down this Rangers lineup, you could get the version that has Grossman or Travis Jankowski or whoever in it. Both of those guys, perfectly serviceable options late in the lineup as mix and match pieces. I'm less enthused about both of those guys than I would be. This is the perfect version of this lineup in my mind. So if we get this, I'm more enthusiastic, but I think I'm going to have a bunch of Rangers here. So neither pitcher, or only small doses of either pitcher. I think Kopech is mispriced in this matchup. I think Perez at the DK price is viable, but not great. Both lineups. I like the White Sox as a value stack. I like the Rangers as they're the Rangers stack. Dodgers, Angels, Battle of Los Angeles. Neither lineup is in. Coming up on 5 o'clock. Plenty of time to make lineups for a 6:40 start, so we're okay. Michael Grove, 5,100, 5,800 is a target in this one for me. I'm going to roster some Angels bats against this guy. What about you guys? I think it's a good spot. 30 innings, 21.9% strikeout rate this year, giving up 10.3% barrels, 41.2% hard hits, 90.6 miles an hour average exit velo, and a 5.84% home run rate. Has an 8.10 ERA and a 4.23 xFIP. 6 samples is unfair. Or 6 innings is an unfair sample. Let's look at 6 starts. Jesus. Jeezy crazy. 6 starts is an unfair sample, so we'll look at 6 starts from last year as well. 29 and a third last year. 18% strikeouts is worse than the 21.9% this year. 7.5% walks is worse than the 6.6% this year. xFIP was worse. ERA was better. Home runs aggressively high at 4.5%. Exit velo was higher. Barrels were lower. 6.1% is a lot better than 10.3% on the barrels, but the hard hits were worse. I think we're dealing with a guy who's a targetable pitcher here. So I'm going to grab some Angels bats. It sucks that we don't get Ohtani, but they still math out as one of the better projected lineups for me when we're talking about the average, and they've got all this power in this lineup. So I love Mike Trout in this spot. He's got a 15.02 to lead the entire day in my home run model. I just took him and made him my home run pick. I figure, we're not in that Trout is always going to hit a home run. You can't use Mike Trout as a home run pick anymore kind of a range. He's been slumping. He's been not necessarily Trout-esque anymore. So I figured I can use him. So I took him. Maybe it's chalky. Maybe it's a little shitty as a home run pick, but he's my guy today. 15 on the season, 219 ISO. I still love Mike Trout. 253, 359, 472. He's in like the worst stretch of his career for the in terms of the triple slash, but the contact is still fine. 51.6. His hard hits are up. His barrels are down, but a 15.4% barrel rate is still outstanding. It's not like we're dealing with a guy who's like Jose Abreu this year. It's still Mike Trout. 6,000 is an aggressive price to pay, but it's still Mike Trout. And you don't have to pay for him and Ohtani on DK. So I think you can do it. 3,900 is cheap for Mike Trout. Mickey Moniak, if he leads off, I like him a lot in that spot. Nice little 12.07 in the home run model. 6 on the year in 85 plate appearances. Former first overall pick. Checks in at 3,500, 2,800. Good value play off the top of the lineup there if he's in the top spot. If he's hitting anywhere else in the lineup, I'll use him in that spot. I like Mickey Moniak as a player. Excuse me. Drury, 4,500, 3,100 for a guy who slots in at first and second base. Tons of home run upside, 12 on the season, 227 ISO, a 120 WRC plus this year. I can definitely grab some shares of Brandon Drury. I like the contact profile. It's another player I believe in. Made specific changes last year that I used to bring up all the time and haven't mentioned in a while, so we'll mention it. Became a good home run hitter last year. Went from like an average guy to like a wow, what happened with Brandon Drury? And he talked about it last season. He made specific changes to his swing plane that resulted in a much better launch angle, a much better barrel rate, and it turned into home runs. Like, those are the things I like to chase when we talk about like, reading things out in the world or something that a player said. Not I'm playing near my hometown, so I get to sleep in my own bed tonight. But if a guy comes out and says, yeah, I'm deliberately swinging on this kind of a plane because I want to take my barrel rate from this number to that number, and then goes out and does it, that's the kind of thing that we can believe in when it comes to narratives, and especially when we get backing from the results. So I like Drury. Thase, if you get him in the lineup as a productive enough catcher bat, 10.1% barrels for a cheap price, 3 home runs and 154 plate appearances. If you get Wallach, perfectly serviceable as well. They'll probably go Thase, just in the platoon nature of things, but if it's Wallach, that's also fine. He's got a pretty good contact profile this year also. Renfroe, tons and tons of power. 60 home runs over the last 2 years, 12 so far this year, 200 ISO. I know he's slumped, 246, 295, 446, only a 101 WRC plus. If we're just home run hunting, I am happy to draw shares of Hunter Renfroe at 3,800, 2,600, especially on FanDuel. That is cheap. Actually, the relative price on DK probably right around the same level. So Renfroe is just cheap. Just cheap. Like it. Jared Walsh, Luis Rengifo, Andrew Velasquez. Take him or leave him. Walsh would be my favorite play from the bottom of the lineup there. He's got 1 homer and 75 plate appearances. Just kind of scuffling along since coming back, though. 125, 253, 234. Aggressive swinger, strikeouts, drawing some walks. It just hasn't clicked in yet. I think he's going to come around over the course of time. A couple years ago, he had a big season of home runs. Last year was down at only 17 over 511 plate appearances, a 166 ISO. But the season before, 15 over 454. I was looking at the wrong line. 15 over 454 last year. Year before, 29 in 585 plate appearances, 232 ISO. We're looking for this guy to return. He might never make it back. I don't know. But
I'll take a few shots, but he's really struggling right now. So maybe we don't get carried away with it, but 2,500, 2,300 is tough to ignore, especially when he's the prime first baseman. You can stick Drury at second. That's easy enough to do. You get multi-position on Renifo if you want to use him. I've talked about him ad nauseum, not doing it this year, but hit 17 home runs as a usable part last year. Buried the lead on this one. Shohei Ohtani facing the Dodgers. I don't know what I want to do with this spot. I think I'm going to let ownership dictate. I think when we were talking ownership from gun sources in that earlier in the show, Greg asks, no Texas lineup yet, but do you prefer Lowe or Garver on FanDuel? Pronounce my name impeccably, by the way. Oh, thank you, buddy. Probably prefer Lowe, just in general for the position in the lineup. He typically hits a little higher in the lineup, correlates a little bit better with the big bats. It would maybe depend a little bit on what else you're using. Like if you had Leody Taveras in the lineup from the 9th spot and you're using him as a wraparound, maybe I do prefer Garver because he'll correlate a little bit with Taveras. But you don't necessarily want the guy who's hitting in front of Leody. You kind of want the guy who's driving Leody in. So I probably prefer Lowe, but it would also depend if Lowe's hitting 3rd. I like him a little better than hitting 5th. And I think we are going to get that version of the lineup where he's hitting 5th. So it's very close. I don't think you're making a mistake either way. Slight lean toward probably Lowe. Let's see what else is going on in the chat. I was in the middle of a point, but I kind of lost track of what it was. Ohtani, popularity. Got it back. So I expect he'll be fairly popular here. And my take on it earlier when I was writing about it, and I think that's kind of where I come down again. Most expensive pitcher on the slate. Obviously, he could break the slate in half over his knee tonight with a monster score. But he's going up against the Dodgers, who are very difficult to strike out overall, who have tons and tons of talent, tons of power up and down the lineup, the ability to exploit his high walk rate this year. I'll have tons. I'll have more than 10%. I might not hit 20% Ohtani, though, especially if he's around 20%. I think it's an undercut. I want to gauge the public popularity again, but I think it's a bit of an undercut for me, especially at price, like comparative to other guys on the slate. Out of the 6 guys that are between like 31 and 33, he's at the bottom at 30.76. That's entirely on the back of facing the Dodgers. It's just a bad spot. So it's a pitcher I absolutely believe in. Would not shock me at all if Ohtani went out and put up a monster start, 7-8 innings, ton of strikeouts, 0 runs, monster score on both sides. Quality start. I'm not calling for the CGSO, but a very good start would not surprise me at all from Ohtani. But I think I lean a little bit more Dodgers. I'll probably not fade, but I'll probably undercut Ohtani, have probably more of the Dodgers than the average person out there, but not a massive amount of them. It's kind of just not necessarily needing it scenario here. I like going to Dodgers bats when nobody else does, though. That's the thing. I like grabbing all this talent when nobody else does, and they're at cheap prices today. I think there's a lot of affordability in that Dodgers lineup. I forgot to change Will Smith to Bill Smith on FanDuel. Apologies there. So we'll see how much I end up with. It's probably going to be something that comes down to process, something that will be driven by the popularity. But with popularity on Ohtani and not necessarily on the Dodgers lineup, I'll probably end up on the the flip side of that with more Dodgers than Ohtani. I do like the pitcher though, and if you roster him as your most rostered pitcher, totally believe I have no issues whatsoever with that. I do not think you're making a mistake. So let me put it like that. If I'm going to Dodgers, Mookie Betts off the top. 6,200 is appropriately priced on the DK slate. 41 is about right, but triple position eligibility for Mookie. I can't get enough of that. Second and shortstop eligibility for Mookie Betts. Shortstop eligibility added on the DK slate, of course, but the second base addition in there is just dynamite. If you count him and Ozzie Albies are tied for the second baseman lead with 17 home runs. So love Mookie. Obvious star, don't need to sell him to you, but 18% strikeouts, 12.7% walks. Freddie, 16.4% strikeouts, 10.7% walks. Smith, 13.1, 15.3. Peralta, if he hits cleanup, 16%, only 5.7 on the walks. But it's a tough strikeout lineup. Ohtani's going to need to work to strike those guys out. He's going to need to work to avoid walking them. His walks are up at 10.6% this year. So that's kind of the flaw I'm looking at where maybe we can angle in with some Dodgers. Obviously, there's power. Obviously, there's run creation ability for all of these guys against any pitcher. JD Martinez, definite down spot in terms of the strikeouts, 30% strikeout rate, but major power, 315 ISO, 16 home runs on the year. Outman, I'm not sure if we get Outman in this spot. Young player, 35.7% strikeouts, does hit for a little bit of power, but do you really want to put him up against Ohtani? Feels like he'll be overmatched in this spot. So I don't know if we get Outman in that spot. If he's there, I think he's a usable part. Plenty of premium contact, 9 home runs and 241 plate appearances, a 200 ISO. But that might be a 0 in lineups if he's in that. That might be a 3 strikeout spot and doesn't deliver in the late innings for you. Kind of a hole in lineups for DFS purposes. So I'm not sure how much I like the Outman spot if he is there. Vargas, Bush, Rojas, meh, kind of mix and match parts. Underperformers overall. Vargas would be the favored one of the group. 6 homers and 89 WRC plus in 263 plate appearances, but not one of those guys is really there yet. So, yeah, for me, no Grove. Definitely some interest in Ohtani, but tempered and probably undercutting the field. Definitely interested in the Dodgers, but tempered in the overall, but probably pushing above the field, assuming that the field is in the mid to low single digits. If for some reason the field's got these guys over 10%, I'll probably undercut the Dodgers too. Larry C says, don't shoot me for this one. I don't believe in BVP, but in the last 3 years, Darvish has sucked against San Francisco. Yeah, as Wade Conforto have crushed him. Yeah, I mean, look, there are, if you're talking about just any sample of 3 premium lefty home run hitters that have a lot of talent on their own, and you give a pitcher a 3 years, what's that, 6 starts? Something like that probably. It's a limited sample. That's the thing. If you stretched Yu Darvish out and let him pitch against those guys every single day, Darvish would win. That's the one thing that we miss in those small samples. I do believe there's upside for the Giants. I will have some Giants. And Darvish hasn't been pitching as well as he normally does, or has in the past. He's a guy who's getting, toward the back end of his career. So we might not have full form Darvish. If we had full form Darvish from a few years ago going up against those guys over these last 3 years, just every single time out for 30 starts, he would win. I'm fairly confident in saying that. But yeah, there is reason to roster San Francisco. We'll get to it. So not going to shoot you, Lar. I know you don't believe in BVP, and I know you weren't putting it that way, but just to kind of stretch the point of why we don't believe in BVP, or why we don't get too excited even about a more solid sample like that. It's just because it's still, even though it looks like a bigger sample comparatively, it's still too small a sample. Hopefully that makes sense. Chuck Deuce says this will be the day Ohtani finally gets his shit together. Yeah, probably. And I'll be under the field and not have enough and watch everybody run away from my lineups. I had such a weird night last night. Oh my God. I went back. I was like, got this right, got that right. Pitchers are right. There was 1 or 2 things that we were totally wrong about that I'm forgetting, but somebody in the chat can remind me about. But I felt like we had a really good day of analysis, and my lineups freaking died on the vine last night. I had such a bad night. Oh God. I don't know what the flaw in combinations was, and I didn't have a chance to look for it, but yeah, it was bad. I think I had a little bit too much Yankees. They got a little bit out ahead with some guys like Stanton was pulling a decent projection and was no ownership on them. So I think a little hole was punched in my lineups by Yankees. I'm not sure what other holes I had, though. I'm curious to go back and look. I don't normally go back and look a lot, but yeah, that one was just a weird slate last night for me. So hoping to turn it around tonight. It was back-to-back ugly nights. Big Bino says, does Ohtani only bat good when he pitches? Probably. That's kind of how I was putting it in the article, and that is an important point to bring up. Obviously, big hole in the lineup DFS-wise not having Ohtani. We're hoping that he drives the run creation. We're hoping that he gets on base and, at least pushes the lineup downstream, but we don't want the 3 home run game from Shohei Ohtani today. If he gets the big score today, that's a tragedy. But I will be going to some Angel stacks and hoping that that's not the case. I do like the Angels up and down the lineup. I do like the Dodgers up and down the lineup. Let's move on. Let's knock out this last one. Lots of Eovaldi. That's what it was, Squatch. Thank you. Lots of Eovaldi hurt me. Yep, I had a ton of Eovaldi last night and not enough of the guys who got there when I talked about wanting a lot of them. It was a deep slate, though. It was a lot of ways to go with pitching. And Eovaldi looked great on the front end. I mean, that was a guy I really wanted to get invested in. But like just in thinking of it, like the Cleveland thing with not getting out over our skis on Cleveland, and just a lot of what I talked about was there. Not to, I'm not, in no way am I saying that in terms of, hey, I'm so smart and I got everything right. I'm saying that in terms of like, I think I got a lot of stuff right and still screwed all these lineups up or just didn't get the results in these lineups, which I think is valuable for people to hear in terms of, you get a lot of people who just day after day are frustrated. I built 10 lineups and didn't win. that's the nature of the beast. I mean, there's just a lot of days where you're just eating shit in DFS, especially in baseball. And when I have them, I'm happy to talk about them, especially when I think I was right about a lot of stuff. When I get a lot of stuff wrong, it's like, yeah, obviously you had a shit night. When I got a lot of stuff right and still have a bad night, it plays on that like confluence of circumstances, how lineups come together. Nolan Jones and Carlson really made. Yeah, I didn't have a lot of Carlson either. I had a good amount of Jones. I had a lot of Jones one-offs because he's a player I really, really like, and he had a big, big day. But I didn't have much Dylan Carlson. There was another piece in there that I'm Ketel Marte I had some of, but probably not enough. But yeah, there's just a few misses, not enough portions, and a few zeros in there. You eat pieces of shit for breakfast? Yeah, Dan. Sometimes. I may go to the bay, make some stuff out of clay. I just may. All right, last game on deck. You, Darvish, Ryan Walker. We just talked about the spot for Darvish. Let's look at Darvish on the whole. 4.74 ERA this year, 3.78 xFIP. Down from 3.10 and 3.58 last year. 4.22, 3.75 the year before. Look, somewhat in line, but definitely not pitching like himself. Giving up more home runs, 3.28 up from 2.85. It's not tragic, but a few more home runs. A little bit more on the average exit velo, a little bit more on the hard hits. There's some happenstance baked in. It's only 74 innings, 13 starts, but maybe not quite as sharp as he used to be. The strikeout rate is about the same as it was last year, but down hard from 2 years ago. Swinging strikes, same thing. So I just think we're looking at a pitcher like this is just probably who Yu Darvish is at this point. He's an older guy, pushing the back end of his career. Still effective, still good, but probably not ace caliber. Just probably another notch down in terms of talent overall. I think the DK price is probably about right, 8,700. FanDuel price is perfectly usable, 91. Still projects really well in my model. I think there's plenty of strikeouts for him here. Everybody in that lineup, basically a 20+% strikeout guy. The average here is brought down by the fact that Luis Matos in 25 plate appearances is only striking out 4% of the time. If I skip that one, the average jumps to 26%. That's a big jump. So there's a lot of strikeouts here for Darvish. He could absolutely get tattooed by any one of these power hitting lefties. There's definite danger there. In the idea of not chasing it in a BVP sense, we're just talking about Jock Peterson, who has a 16.3% barrel rate and a 50% hard hit rate against everybody. 8 home runs on the season, 150 plate appearances. We know Jock Peterson is a major power hitter against right-handed pitching. JD Davis, 11.4% barrels, 49.4% hard hits, 10 home runs and 256 plate appearances. Same-handed matchup for Davis, but tons of premium contact, tons of power. Thairo Estrada has 9 home runs. Not a great contact profile for Estrada. He just kind of gets it done. Good correlated scoring piece if he's not hitting home runs off the top of the lineup. Back to the lefties with Conforto and Yaz. 9.6% barrels, 42.3% hard hits, 10.8, 47.5. 12 home runs, 10 home runs. We're just dealing with very good left-handed hitters. I think Lamont Wade came out of the lineup last night, by the way. I don't know if he's going to be back in this one. That's why he's not in the projected here, I would imagine. But if we do get him, obviously that's another premium lefty bat. Lamont Wade gets on base at a ridiculous clip, hits for power. Really like Lamont Wade. Is doing much better this year against lefties, too. They drop him in the lineup usually against lefties. He doesn't lead off against lefties, but he's having an outstanding year. Underrated piece, and he's still not really priced up for DFS. Not a guy who gets a lot of love, but a guy I like quite a bit. So going down this lineup, Luis Matos, Patrick Bailey, Brandon Crawford, David Villar, kind of a weakish back end. Matos is a talented rookie, speed, mid-range power, one of those like probably 15 home runs, maybe 20 stolen bases in his best year type of a guy. Maybe it's like 10, 12, and 20 plus stolen bases, something like that. But good enough type of a prospect for a very cheap price. If you're rostering a bunch of Giants, you can definitely put him in the lineup. You can use shares of Bailey, Crawford, and VR. They're all capable guys. Crawford and VR, Crawford certainly veteran know-how and the idea of some remembered power from the left side of the plate. VR, big year in last season in limited doses. 5 home runs this year in 121 plate appearances. We talked about it yesterday. We're looking to book a cheap home run with VR. Probably not much else. The Padres side of things. Bury the lead a bit again. Apologies to anybody who rostered Sean Manaea on Monday, by the way. Hopefully you were able to get out of it with a late swap. He didn't end up playing. He didn't end up pitching in that game. He was supposed to, the story I had read that day was that he was coming back on short rest because he only went like 3 and change innings on the Friday before. Had a clunker as a bulk reliever, and they were going to bring him back out. And that didn't materialize. So apologies if we screwed anybody up there, but I believe that to be the situation tonight. My understanding is that Sean Manaea is coming out of the bullpen tonight on full rest, which would be his normal spot. So I guess you could do it if you're so inclined. If you chase those DK bulk reliever plays, Manaea is a guy you can do it with. He's got the memory of being a good strikeout pitcher. I just don't want to do it with him against this Padres lineup at what is, let's see where he's priced. 54. I don't know. Gambling on the idea that he's actually the guy coming out of the pen. The mean kid not pitching. Do you mean Sean Manaea, Anthony? If Anthony Foley, if you mean Sean Manaea when you say the mean kid, then I believe he is, unless something changed. I've got Ryan Walker as the opener, and I believe Sean Manaea. I assume you mean Keaton Winn. I don't know who that is. Keaton Winn, is he supposed to be the bulk reliever? I had missed that. See, this is why to me this is a dialogue, guys. Recalled him. I see nothing that says he's the bulk reliever tonight. Schmabs still has Ryan Walker. Let me see if we get... See, this is why I hate this bulk relief situation. I think it's an effective strategy for baseball, and I get why teams do it. Is there another Sean Manaea in baseball, or is this just like a weird old story that just popped up? See, now I'm Googling the name Sean Manaea, and for some reason, a story from 2015 popped up as being published 4 days ago on Bleacher Report, which is weird. It's the story about Ben Zobrist being traded to Kansas City for Aaron Brooks and Sean Manaea, which is definitely not something that happened 4 days ago. That was weird. I don't know why that's coming up in that spot. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything on either of those names. So, like, for me, I just want to avoid this situation in terms of rostering a pitcher from the Giants side of things. Let's just leave it at that for now. DK still has Manaea as the projected long reliever. Labs has Walker and Jelly. Yeah, see, this is such a screwy situation. So, like, for me, I'm just not going. I wouldn't go to that bulk relief situation. It's a shitty situation anyway. Why do you want to attack the Pods? Let's make it as simple as that. We don't know who it's going to be. We don't want to attack the Padres. Works for me. Don't need them on FanDuel. Don't need them on DK. I think there's definitely upside for the Padres, though. Fernando Tatis has a monster home run projection every single day. 15 home runs on the season, 12 stolen bases, a 277 ISO, 152 WRC+. Put them together with Juan Soto off the top. Soto for 3,200, followed by Machado at 3,000 and Bogarts at 3,000 on the FanDuel slate. Like, I don't care that two of those guys have underperformed this year. FanDuel's pricing it wrong. Take those guys at the discount and just run. Jake Cronenworth, serviceable correlated scoring player who hasn't really done it much this year, but we looked at his stats from last year the other day. Can hopefully get the engine going a little bit and provide a catalyst for this team going forward. Gary, if he's in the lineup, if he makes contact, has a good shot at hitting a home run against anybody that comes out of the Giants bullpen. If he doesn't make contact, he's probably putting a 0 in your lineup. That's what you live with Gary Sanchez. He costs $3,900, $2,800. Like him where you need catchers. I'll use him where you don't need catchers. Carp, Ha-Sung Kim, Trent Grisham. It's kind of a weak back end. We know that with this team. We know that they're top heavy. Kim is probably the most usable part down there. You get maybe a little bit more of an idea of a reliable power out of Carp and Grisham. But Kim's actually got 5 home runs this season, 12 steals, a 100 WRC+. He's probably the most productive of the group. So that's where I'm going there. But for me, 1 through 6 for the Padres, I'll probably have a pretty decent rotation of that. If they're under-owned, I'll have a little bit more. It's not like they come up under-owned a lot, but I think on this slate, maybe they slip a little bit under the radar with some of the good spots. We'll see how it comes out. But I'm interested in some Padres for sure. So I'll have good amount of you, I think. Good amount of, it's a good value price, $87.91. That's cheap enough, especially with the way he projects comparatively to some of the other options, that I think I will have a good amount of Darvish here. Maybe it burns me, maybe it doesn't. No real interest in the Giants pitchers or the bulk relief situation. Definitely going to have some Giants bats. Definitely going to have some Padres bats. RotoWire has Manaea as well. All right. I mean, if you guys want to look at Manaea, I'll put him. Probably should put him on the right side. So at 54, what Manaea has given us over the course of the season is this. The 28% strikeouts is what you're chasing. I don't love just chasing strikeouts against this Padres lineup, though. Talking about a 5.84 ERA, a 3.97 xFIP. He's been better in this bulk relief role, but there's still contact here. There's still a 13.1% barrel rate over the course of the season, 40.8% hard hits, 3 and change on the home runs, some exit velo. I know that he's been better in the bullpen role. I can pull that up real quick on graphs. I wrote about it the other day on Monday when I thought he was going to be going on Monday. But we can just take a look at it. I think the 28% is actually normalized to his as a starter rate now. Or excuse me, as a reliever. No, actually it's all right. So as a reliever in this bulk relief role, 32.1% strikeouts is a very, very good strikeout rate. 3.15 xFIP is a very good xFIP, but was worse on his most recent outing. And just, I don't know. It just seems if we're getting him, 3-4 innings, the upside is so capped. It's so difficult to pull that play off that I just don't love doing it against this team. If he was facing, if he was facing the A's or the Tigers or even the Nationals with a little bit of talent against the lefty, I'd probably be more enthusiastic. I just don't like the idea, even if the other guy goes out and takes Tatis, Soto, and Machado out of it for an inning. I just don't love the idea of going into, you got these 3 guys who are all okay. Bogarts is great. These guys are okay. And then you do have to come back around to that top end. Like, it's not like he's going to not face those guys. So, I don't know. For me, it's very limited appeal to do that with the bulk reliever against a team like this. All right, let's move on. So middling. Yeah, I agree, Jay. All right, let's take a quick look at the pitcher board, and then we'll punch out coming up on 5:30. Got to get some lineups built. Hour and 10 minutes. So I've been telling you guys, all these guys are basically projected as the exact same play today. You can play the price game. You can play the popularity game. I would throw Nola into that mix. No problems there. I don't really have issues with rostering these guys, this guy on DK. I think it's good enough. But there's a noteworthy gap between Nola and Perez when you look at this board. Smith-Shawver, if you wanted to take a few shots, now that there's rain involved in Philly, that just gets even worse at that $8,000 price on the FanDuel slate. These prices should be on the opposite sides. Those don't make any sense to me, but if you wanted to take shots with Paul Blackburn for 68 on the FanDuel slate, I greatly prefer Whitlock at 66 and a 10-point higher projection in a great strikeout matchup than Blackburn for 200 more in a bad strikeout matchup. I guess overall the Twins are a better team than the Guardians are. There's more power threatening Whitlock and all of that, but the Guardians are just really difficult to strike out. So Blackburn would have to get it done on innings, a quality start, a win, and find a few strikeouts to pay that price off. But there is value there. Kopech, Grove, Brito, Walker, or Manaea, I just don't really need. That's about it, gang. Fun one. I think this is going to be a really interesting slate. I really like this one. I'm going to get to a nice broad spread of these pitching shares. That's my plan. I love the value on Gav. 57 especially on DK is a misprice on one of the top prospects in baseball. Take advantage. If you use Gavin Williams 100 times out of 150 as your SP2 and then threw Whitlock into the other 50, I don't know that you're making a mistake there. And a nice spread of these other guys, nice spread of your various high-end hitting combinations, that buys you quite a bit on that slate. Need to deliver, but it's the ideal spot for that kid to debut in with Gavin Williams. So I really, really like this spot against all this crap. All right, that's it. Good stuff, gang. Really appreciate everybody hanging out. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, jump into the free Discord if you got any questions, anything like that. I'm hanging out there all day. I check it all through the night. I'm up till all hours, so I'm always up for answering oddball, how do I build a lineup for DFS questions, at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm on Twitter. I pay less attention to the Twitter feed, but ask me questions there as well, and I'll eventually catch them. Really appreciate everybody hanging out. Good luck out there. Go get them.